Hey everybody, it's Matthew. Welcome back. You know how you set goals or expectations for yourself, and inevitably those don't always go how you want them to? Well, that's kind of what we're going to talk about today, because I am sort of in the midst of that. In fact, I'm in the midst of that quite a few times when it comes to videos for this channel. Just from the aspect of I kind of schedule out in my head how I want things done and how I want them to go in a certain timely manner, and a lot of times they just happen to not stack up that way for a lot of different reasons. So, I mean, that's one of the things that's consistently tough about trying to make YouTube videos on a schedule, is things can always go wrong, things can always be weird, especially when you're doing music stuff. That's a whole other curveball that just creates a huge mess of things sometimes when you're trying to do something on a schedule. So here I am sitting here having to push a video over 2 weeks out, even more probably, because I can't get the song that is involved with it finished. In life, of course, we're always hassled with different expectations from the outside world, whether it's somebody at work or your boss, whether it's your own family, or any other factor out there that expects you to do a certain thing, and then sometimes it can go wrong, and then you're meant to deal with the frustration and anxiety after. And even though the expectations of others can be, a difficult thing to deal with, especially when you don't necessarily meet those, and a lot of times people set those expectations when they don't necessarily actually know you all that well. So what they expect you to do may not be what you need or want to do at all. They just have an image of you in their head, and sometimes it's hard for people to accept when the image they have of somebody else is not exactly what the reality is. But that's the thing about that being external, is you can ignore it and in some cases defy it. Whether or not that's a negative or a positive outcome, is going to obviously depend on you and what you decide to do. Of course, that means don't be like an asshole just to break someone's expectations. That's the wrong way, obviously, to go about it. But at the end of the day, that's all on the outside. That is escapable. It's not the same thing as setting your own expectations for yourself, which can be an even worse killer than any kind of external expectation. And the reason for that is we all have a self-image that we like to keep in our head of the kind of person we are and the things that we do, and all those different kinds of ideas. And when we aren't able to keep that up, it can be a big source of anxiety and frustration. In this specific case here, that's usually deadlines that we set for ourselves to do things. And that's an important thing to have when you're trying to do stuff on your own, but it's also important not to set those in stone and give yourself a little bit of flexibility, because letting yourself down feels a lot worse than it does if you let somebody else down. And I've had this situation come up multiple times, and yet I still seem to have a difficult time not creating expectations for myself or giving myself flexibility to not feel the pressure to, make a video absolutely every week. And in this specific case, if you watch the last video, you know what's going on. But I've been working on a cover of a Soundgarden song for Soundgarden month. And the month of March is over at this point, so we've kind of gone past our usual criteria. We're in April now, and so obviously that's the first problem, is it didn't come out in the month that it's supposed to come out in. That is, of course, from multiple very annoying setbacks that I can't do anything about, which is another allegory of life, because you're hit constantly with things that you can't do anything about, that you have no control over, yet you still have to sit with the consequences and the emotions that come with that kind of thing. But to be specific here, you guys know that I have a disability. We've talked about that. I have muscular dystrophy. I've brought that up in other videos before. I can still walk around and stuff, although it's not always great, and that's kind of where the problem is. I was walking a few weeks ago around the house, and I happened to fall and landed right on my left knee, and literally nothing else, just the left knee. And that was a big problem. Of course, it didn't hurt a lot when it happened. That was fine. The problem was, of course, later, having to get over the pain and, loosen it up and all that and wait for it to heal. And of course, that happening, it made it hard to work on certain stuff. I didn't really want to play guitar with the knee hurting all the time, because for the first 5 days of that, a pretty big pain to manage it. So I got behind there and couldn't play some of the stuff that I needed to play for the song I was working on. And I get over that, and then I get in a real bad problem with sleeping, where I'm for several days getting like less than 5 hours of sleep or something a night, and that's really bad to do for an extended period of time. We were getting close to 2 weeks with very little sleep, which is not good. And with my disability, that creates some complications, you know, already feeling a lot of fatigue and extra weakness and stuff from not sleeping, which of course is going to inevitably affect my voice as well and my ability to do vocals, because you have a bunch of different muscles down your whole track here, from your throat all the way down to below your stomach, that contribute in some way to proper singing technique. And when those things get out of whack, obviously that gets really hard to do. So I kept putting it off a little bit until I felt a little better to, you know, try to start on vocals, and I did. And then there were still days of not getting enough sleep that made it difficult, made me not be able to do as much as I wanted to, having to throw out stuff and redo it later. And all of that slowed down the schedule I had for making a music video for the cover, and we're really far behind now, and we're where we are now. And then that's where I get into trouble, is I'm in a situation where things do go wrong and get in the way quite often of what I'm trying to do, and yet I agonize over, you know, trying to still meet the expectation of getting a video out once a week. And that's really hard to do when other ideas that you're working on are getting shut down because of things out of your control. And that's of course kind of the point of this video, is to say you can set expectations and goals for yourself, but don't, you know, hardline on those. Don't make it an absolute, because when you do that, you'll create a bunch of extra anxiety and frustration that didn't need to be there, all for a thing that you're supposed to be doing for yourself. That's what YouTube videos are for. At the end of the day, the creative stuff is supposed to be for the person doing it. And of course, there's an audience for that, and they can enjoy stuff too, but it's always comes from the creator first. And so if it's your own thing, why are you setting ridiculous expectations for yourself and then getting frustrated when those things don't happen? You know, it should be for you. Missing a video for a week shouldn't be a big deal. Getting behind on something shouldn't be a big deal, because eventually it's still going to get made. It's not going to be when you wanted it, but it's going to be done anyway. So that's kind of the goal, right? So why put all this extra crap on yourself when you don't need to? And that is something I have had to learn a lot, and I still have not learned that lesson particularly well. Hopefully making this video will finally teach me the lesson I'm supposed to from not letting these expectations control me. But we'll see. You have to keep in mind there's always that inevitability that there's going to be something else down the road that's not going to go how you want it to. And then you're going to have to figure out how to handle that. And doing it from a neurotic perspective first is probably not the best way to handle it, because you're just going to drive yourself crazy. Anyway, the cover song ought to be done in a couple of weeks, hopefully. I don't know how long mixing is going to take. That can always be up in the air. That can go really quick, or it can be really slow. We'll just have to see. And hopefully you guys all learned something from my little story today. That's what I try to bring in these kinds of vlog videos, is to bring out maybe a little bit of wisdom that can help you out, and also keep you from running into the same pitfalls that I've run into in certain situations. So like and subscribe if you guys did enjoy the video today. Leave a comment down below if you'd like. As always, don't forget to click the bell so you know when a new video is out on the channel. And I'll see you guys next time in another video. Have a good one.